Do you and your partner want to learn simple ways to grow closer?
Do you and your partner want to grow happier together?
Do you and your partner want to be a unified front?
Do you and your partner want to divorce-proof your marriage?
If you answer yes to these questions, you need to check out our book, Unlock It Forever, 10 Keys to a Successful Marriage Beyond I Do.
Each section focuses on a different aspect of marriage and briefly describes how we handled it in our relationship. At the end of the section, you're given an action step or key to complete with your partner.
These keys are practical steps you can immediately implement in your relationship and help you and your partner be proactive and intentional about your relationship.
You can purchase your copy on Amazon.com.
And until next time, we will holler at y'all.
Before we get into our episode, we want to share this disclaimer. We are not marriage counselors, nor are we mental health professionals. We simply want to share with you what has worked in our marriage. Now, on to our episode.
After over 25 years of marriage, we've learned that successful couples have great friendships, put each other first, and focus on light just as much as love. We believe marriage should be fun and easy.
Our goal is to share our journey with the hopes of helping others build strong, happy relationships. Join us as we continue to create our lives beyond I do.
All right, we'd like to welcome you back to another wonderful episode of the Beyond I Do podcast. We have with us today a very special guest by the name of Francine Tirrell. Francine is a dynamic spiritual mindset coach, energy healer, and the visionary behind Forever Change Coaching LLC. She is passionate about guiding women through big ass up levels in their careers, relationships, and personal lives by helping them break free from the addiction to busyness and reclaim their focus, purpose, and joy. So we'd like to welcome you, Francine.
Yay. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for joining us. If you would tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us about what it is you do and how you got to that point.
Sure. Gosh. So I guess it's, I've probably always been on this journey, but back in so I just shared with you, before we started recording, I shared with you, I have a birthday this Sunday. It's the big 6-0. So probably about 15 years ago, I was in my mid 40s and I kind of looked around and I was like, where did all my girlfriends go? Like, I have no friends anymore. And I was really looking for girlfriends. And I found this women's group. It was called Magic Parties. And it was this group of women that met every month and talked about, there was just a different topic each month. And they did a couple of retreats a year. And I was like, these are my people. And it was run by a coach, and there were other coaches in it. But 15 years ago, nobody knew what coaching was. It wasn't the buzzword that it is today. And I thought, I want to do this. I want to be a coach. I was a leader in a corporate setting. So I was kind of coaching my employees, but like I wanted to go to coaching school. Well, I looked into it and it was not inexpensive. And I was like, I can't really justify this expense for like a part-time hobby.
Right.
So I kept wanting to do it and wishing I could and all the things. And about 2 years later, a good friend's husband dropped dead at the age of 50 of a heart attack. And I thought, okay, how much longer do you keep putting this off? And at the time I was 47 and my mom died at 48. So for a long time, my story was, I'm going to be dead at 48, right? So the funeral is over. I call the coaching school and I'm like, all right, when does the next program start? And what's the student loan thing? I think I paid $120 a month for like 10 years or something ridiculous like that. So I went to coaching school. I'm also an energy healer. So I had done my Reiki training. And then after coaching school, I went to, it's called the Reese Thomas Institute. It's an energy healing program, but a life mastery. And I call it heal the healer, because we can't help others if we're not doing our own inner work.
Right.
So I was doing some deep ass, and we can say bad words on this, right?
Oh, yes.
Some deep ass. I know.
Look,
That's why I like
you melted
that.
his heart.
Yes. I think that's why we connected when we first met.
Yep.
So I was doing some deep ass work on myself. And my husband also decided to go to the school. So as a couple, we were both doing our individual work and then doing our own work. But I was still in corporate, telling myself the story that I couldn't quit my day job. I can't do this, blah, 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 blah. I need the money, blah, blah, all the things. And I was with a startup in 2019 that didn't quite start up. And in December of 2019, they closed their doors. And then I kept, looking for jobs. And then this little thing called COVID happened. You might have heard about it.
Yeah.
And you did. Yeah, maybe they had it there too. Okay. And in April of 2020, somebody reached out and was like, "Hey, you coaching?" And I was like, "Sure," because what the hell else am I doing right now besides painting my house?
Right.
So since 2020, I've been doing it full time. And over the last few years, I also worked with a company as a professional matchmaker and a date and relationship coach. That has ended. So really my focus is working with women who spend so much time in their brain, in their head, and always gets kind of paralyzed. I call it paralyzed by indecision because they're in the what if. Well, what if this happens? And what if this happens? And what if this happens? And really teaching them how to surrender and trust. And I had to learn that. Yeah. I'm telling you, like during COVID, I mean, it was real. I was out of a job. My husband had a job, but we didn't know what was going to happen. And a friend had COVID early on. And I remember having a lot of anxiety one day. And a friend of mine said to me, "So what?" She said, "What are you anxious about?" And I said, "I'm afraid my friend's going to die and my husband's going to lose his job." And she said, "So what?"
Right.
And I went, "Oh, my friend never died." And later that year, my husband never lost his job. And now later that year, he got a job that he's in today that he makes a lot more money and he's a lot more happier. Right.
Wow.
But like the story I was telling myself, I was creating, all right, well, if he loses his job, we can do this. And I was creating a plan for something that never happened.
Right.
Right.
You can relate to that.
Oh
Margaret?
my gosh.
For those who maybe aren't watching this, Margaret's raising her hand.
I'm raising my hand because I'm a planner, and there's no way you could ever plan for every outcome.
And often they don't happen.
Right. And so that's where we balance each other because he's a doer. And so while I'm writing lists and drawing diagrams and making plans, he's like, "Let's go.
Let's just get this shit done."
Right.
Go ahead.
So that speaks to me a very deep level.
Yeah.
And part of it is trust, right? Really trusting that.
Right.
There is, I say to my clients, there is no right or wrong, good or bad, right? Things happen. Like it wasn't bad that I lost my job. I lost my job.
Right.
The bad is the judgment I put on it.
Right.
Yes.
And that's that things don't happen to me. Things happen.
Right.
So, you change and switch how you need to, but things happen. It's not something that like nobody is has a voodoo doll and they're poking pins. Well, I mean they might, but
they might. I mean that's possible, right?
It doesn't affect me.
And I think part of it is when we're in it, it's hard to see it. But when I often will have clients go through write down all the big things that happened in your life. What did you learn from that? Right? Like what lessons have you learned? And right after I was laid off, before COVID happened, I was working with the coach that used to run that program. And she said to me, because I had just gotten laid off, she said, "Francine, for as long as I've known you, you've always landed on your feet." And I was like, oh, she's not wrong, but I needed somebody else to actually. And so that's kind of my guiding force. Like, I'm always okay. It may be uncomfortable, but I'm always okay.
Right. So the busyness trap.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that.
We live in a society where
busy.
Right.
Yep.
And sometimes it seems like an unintentional thing or like you're not even aware of it. So tell us about the busyness trap and how to work through those things and avoid.
Yeah. I call it an addiction because, we're addicted to alcohol, we're addicted to food, addicted to drugs, and we're addicted to busyness. The difference is food, you're fat, drugs, you're an addict, or you're a drunk. But the busyness, you get pats on the back. wow,
Right.
you're successful and got a lot done. But they're at the fundamental level, they're all doing the same thing. They're numbing you.
Yeah.
They're keeping you from feeling the emotions that you're avoiding.
Mm.
And I'll share an example a year or so ago, even myself, because I am much better at it now, but I still, now what happens is when my schedule is too busy, which I'm going through right now, I actually don't feel good. Like before I used to be able to push through it. Now I'm like, I need to cancel things. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
But about a year or so ago, I was supposed to go to a 3-day workshop that I canceled. I forget why. I just decided it wasn't the right time for me. So I woke up on the first morning and had nothing to do. So I went and I read a book. And I don't know, 30 minutes in, I said to I could feel the anxiety, but I didn't notice it. I said, I have to go do something. And I've done enough work that I recognize what was going on in my body. And I thought, well, you don't actually have anything to do. Like, I mean, there's always stuff to do, but my calendar was empty. And I use EFT. So I'm an EFT practitioner. So I used EFT, which is similar to acupuncture, but you tap points on your face, on your body, and it uses the mind body system to bring change in emotions and thoughts and behaviors. So I used EFT to tap through like what is coming up for me right now.
Yeah.
And what came up was if I'm not doing, I'm not worthy. So my worth is tied to what I can do. So if I'm just sitting here reading a book, I'm not worthy. Well, that's not true.
Right.
So I tapped through that and then I sat and continued reading my book, right? But I had to get to the root of like, why do I feel like I need to get like there's nothing to do, but keeping ourselves in that do is to avoid the
Right. Now you stepped on his toes.
So sorry.
Because he's, sometimes he'll be off and I get home and he says, I didn't do anything all day. Well, you're off. That's the point of being off work.
And I will say that I have done a better job probably within the last, I would say, 6 months of, because I work shift work and then I work on cars on the side. So there have been some people I've been turning down or shifting to other, people, saying, hey, I can't do that. And, I am actually enjoying more of my off days, but then sometimes I sit around and it's like, all right, it's 10 o'clock. I need to do something.
Right.
I always try to
Because God
squeeze
forbid
in
you just
something
sit
before
and
she
enjoy
gets home.
yourself.
Yeah.
Or he'll say, I didn't get up until 9 o'clock. I didn't get out of bed until 9 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and we have judgment of that. Like I look
Right.
at old Facebook posts from like 12, 13 years ago, and I was bragging about how productive I was today. Today
Right.
was such a productive day. And I look at it now and I'm like, oh my
Wow.
God, that's what I was basing things on, right?
Right.
Now,
I've had 2 major surgeries in the last year and a half. I've had my hip and my knee replaced, and I've had to learn to do nothing
Right.
and be okay with it.
Right.
And then ask for help on top of it.
Right. And sometimes our bodies will
Yeah.
our bodies
if you don't
will
do
let us
it,
know and
They'll let you know.
make us sit down.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I had to sit down the last 3 weeks, and my old sinuses said, "No, we're not gonna work correctly."
It's more
for
than
you."
that, but it's okay.
I mean,
Man for you.
it was. I had an infection in my sinus.
Yeah.
And I know the first weekend I typically 2 weekends on, 2 weekends off. So that first weekend off, I couldn't do a thing. It was just literally like I laid in bed. And thinking back on it, I really do appreciate that time.
Yeah.
I was able to just do nothing, even though I was sick, but I was able to do nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
That and like you said, it's tied into our self-worth, but then I know for some of us we feel like others will judge if we're not busy, if we're not up and moving around and doing.
Right.
So it's overcoming the self part, but also overcoming the worry about what others
are going to think.
Right. Right.
Now you said something. You talking about anxiety about your mother passing away. at 48. And I remember my dad passed away at the age of 47. So I was like, had anxiety, coming up to that 47th year.
Yeah.
All right, I made it past that 47th year, but then I was like, well, maybe if I make it to 48, I'll be fine.
I actually, for my 49th birthday, I threw myself a "Hey, look, I didn't die" party. My friends were like, I'm sorry, what? I was like, look, for a long time, this was my story. But I was in coaching school on the weekend of my 48th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
But I will say, like, turning 60 this weekend, like the past year, I've had to work through a lot of stuff on, like, 60 feels really monumental. There's like guilt around actually being 60 and being able to be 60.
Right. I see. And I never thought about, right.
Yeah.
I thought about that.
I actually worked with my EFT practitioner on some money stuff last year because I said, I have this pattern of like, I get money in and then I spend it and then I feel guilty that I spent it and I get more money in and I'm in this vicious cycle. And as I was tapping, I got like what I would say is a punch. And I was like, oh, and she's like, what? I'm like, I need a minute. She said, well, what's going on? I was like, what came up for me was I actually have guilt that I actually get to spend money. So if that's my underlying, then I'm going to be in that pattern of doing it so that I can stay guilty until I break that pattern. Right. Because she never got to, like, it's been 30, I don't know, do the math, 34 years
Right.
that she's been gone. A lot has happened in 34 years.
Right.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And we get my therapist calls them the records. And we have those records there that play and and we get used to them to the point where they almost
they become true and real.
They become true. They're almost comfort.
Yeah.
Because you're used to them.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I've had to work through. My mom was 62 when she passed, so the age thing has not been an issue, but thinking about milestones that she has missed, that has been the thing for me. Or anytime, like if we travel somewhere and I'm like, she never got to experience this because 62 is young.
Nope.
And
turning 60, I can tell you 62 is very young.
Right. So I struggled last year with 50. And he was so excited. He was telling people she's 50. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Simmer down.
Yeah. And it's funny, the age thing. I don't know that I've ever really had an issue with my age. I said to somebody recently, I think having worked at the matchmaking company has done something to the way that people respond and react about age when dating. I think really screwed with me a little bit. Because people like, I don't want to date somebody over this age. I don't want to take care of somebody. I don't like the stories that people tell themselves. Right. Wow. Or nobody my age looks as young as me. Nobody my age is as active as me. Nobody, right? Like every single person over the age of 50 says that. So maybe somebody your age actually does have the same activity level as you.
There have been posts on Facebook where people will say, if you don't look your age, post your picture, and people are posting pictures in their age. And I'm like, no. And so then I start looking at myself going, maybe I do look my age.
Well, I actually said that to one of the matchmakers because I said, people used to tell me all the time I looked young for my age. And she said, how old are you? And maybe at the time I was 56. And she's like, you do? I was like, sorry, I don't believe you because I've got women getting on and I think, oh God, she's got to be in her 60s and she's 2 years younger than me. Right? I'm like, and she's telling me how young she looks. And I'm like, oh, sweetie, no.
Right. It's really made me question. I'm looking, do I look? Right. I'm like, you look your age. It's like you said, it does something to your mind because and it's one of those things again, that we're told that to be younger is to be better and to be this and to be that. But really the wisdom that comes with age and experience, I wouldn't trade that for anything. The wisdom that's there and the comfort with just being me. that has come through age and maturity. I wouldn't trade that for the world, because I tell you, 20 years ago, it was
right.
there was a lot of confusion.
Well, and I think 60 is like you're supposed to be thinking about retirement and slowing down. And, I've been full-time. I mean, I've been a coach for 12 years, but full-time 5, right? So I'm like, I'm just getting started. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right. So it's this weird dichotomy of like, what am I supposed to be doing? I want to be doing this thing. And
And
when you're looking at it, 60, you're reaching that age, and I think you get to you think and you get to say fuck it a lot more.
yeah, I was saying that all along, but I can say it more now.
The older you get, it's like, you know what, fuck it, because I know why should I care about that?
Yeah.
And that
my mother had a story. It was like there was this book called like When I Get Old I Can Wear Purple or a Red Hat or something like that. It was like nobody's going to question me because I'm old, right? Like I get to do whatever I want at a certain age. Like,
that's what I was going to say. I think that it becomes acceptable. So the things that I would say at 30 and that people would get really offended about, I can say at 50, and it's almost expected. So
I love that.
And an honorary.
Did you have?
Yeah. So many people struggle with their inner critic. How do you guide your clients in silencing that voice and embracing their true potential?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's different names for the inner critic, gremlin, whatever it is, but it is that internal voice that is, you talked about records. This is like the tape recorder over and over and over, telling you, you shouldn't do that. Oh, that wasn't good enough. That wasn't bad enough. And I tell my clients, like, your brain lies to you 100% of the time. I mean, it's good for math problems, but other than that, it's lying to you. And I think part of it is slowing down enough and getting quiet enough to recognize it's a lie. And then shifting that, right? Because number one, we are good enough, right? We are smart enough. We are fill in the blank. But because we've been playing that record so much, we forget. So it really is, part of it, I think, is allowing yourself to get quiet. And as a society, we don't do that, right? That keeps us, again, out of the, I say to people all the time, do you meditate? And they're like, I can't meditate. I can't be quiet. So meditation isn't about like nothing happening up here. Because if nothing's happening, you're dead. Meditation is, right, noticing the thoughts and just putting them in a bubble and letting them go away and then bringing yourself back to center. So even if it's just 3 deep breaths, it's a practice of coming back to self. So we think the first thing is just recognizing the bull that's being told to you and then reframing it. And it takes work because it's been ingrained for so long. I know myself, my inner critic was my thing was, it was just factual. Well, the fact is I can't lose any more weight. Well, the fact is I'm not good with money. Well, the fact is, right? They were facts. I had facts to back it up.
Yeah. You could back it up in your brain.
I could back it up with spreadsheets if I needed to.
Right.
But,
or list.
Right, exactly. But recognizing that it really wasn't true.
Right.
That's my thing. Previous guest that we had, she said, is it fact or is it feeling? And so that has been my thing since then. I have to stop and I'm like, okay, is it fact or is it feeling? Once I determine that it's feeling, okay, it's feeling, so I control that. So let's go ahead and get rid of that.
Right. Well, and to take that even to a different place, like I teach my clients to use their body as a guidance system, right? Where are you feeling that? What are you feeling? Right. Also, I teach them how to muscle test. Do you know what muscle testing is? So it's using your body as a pendulum. There's different ways of doing it. I use my body as a pendulum. I put my legs to, not quite together. And I say, show me yes. And my body usually falls forward. Show me no. And my body goes back. Your body will never lie to you.
Oh, ever. Wow.
So you can hold it up. Is this glass of water good for me? Yes. Is this glass of wine good for me? No, right? Oh God, I hope it doesn't ever do that. But
it depends on the day.
But when I have to make big decisions, right, my brain will say, you can't spend that money on a coach. You can't invest that much money. That's too much. Danger, danger. And then I check in with my body. My body's like, yes, this is what we're going to do. Right.
That's I read a couple of books last year about the mind body connection.
Right. Yeah.
And how your physical you will physically manifest some of those things that are going on internally.
Absolutely.
And that answered questions for me from years.
Are you familiar with Louise Hay?
Yes.
Do you have the book You Can Heal Your Life?
I do not, but I'm going to make note of that.
You can heal your life. You can heal your life. And you can go into it and find every ailment there is, and it will give you an emotional component to it.
Okay.
So one day I went through and I was like, damn. That explains so much.
A lot. Right. Right. And and then when going back to childhood and carrying those things with you. So it's been a journey. I have always questioned people who get the runner's high with working out, and I still don't enjoy it, but I can tell a difference when I'm consistently working out versus not.
Absolutely.
I can tell a difference with my emotions and with my mental focus and mental stamina. And so it's amazing how we're created and everything is supposed to work. And then we start messing with it.
There's another book called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes, I've read that one.
Yeah, I have it. I haven't read it yet, but I know I know a lot of people who have, so I know bits and pieces of it. But it's like our body is the guidance system.
Right.
And we need to listen
to trust it. Yeah. So in working with as a relationship coach and as a matchmaker, what were some things that when clients would come to you, how would you prepare them in terms of dating and being in a relationship? Because oftentimes we think of relationships as, you have two people and you're working with two people, but the individual needs to be in a good place first. So
yeah, absolutely. I truly believe you can't be in relationship with others unless you're in relationship with yourself. Right. And here's the thing, there's so many people that are, but I think healthy relationships is there's me, there's you, there's us.
Right.
Yeah. And what does relationship with self mean? It means understanding why we react to certain things, right? Why we get triggered, right? Understanding your love language, knowing your attachment style, right? For a long time in the beginning of our marriage, my love language is acts of service. If my husband said he would do something and then didn't, he might as well have said, I hate you, I'm leaving, goodbye, because that's what it felt like to me, when in fact he just had ADD and forgot to do the thing. But now I just like chuckle and go, so do you want to do that again? Do you want to just finish that thing? I don't have the reactions anymore. Where before I had the reactions. So when and I also met my husband on a blind date. And the company I worked for was a blind dating service, so that you didn't see pictures. And people are so much men more than women, but and it's not a bad thing, but it's just the way we respond to the opposite sex is they're visual. Right. So, physical attraction is instant for men. Right. Typically. Women are more willing to give it a second. Even if the first date wasn't great, they're willing to give it a second chance. Men typically will not do that. And like I said, I met my husband on a blind date. He is not somebody I would have ever chosen for myself off of an app or in a bar. He wasn't my type. Right. And I would always tell my clients that story because I feel it's important to recognize that your type hasn't really worked for you up to this point.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's just maybe try something new.
That was one of those things that I had mentioned to a female friend of ours. She was, questioning us about, wanting to find, like, you got a type. How's that been working for you?
Right.
Maybe that should change.
Right.
Your type shouldn't be at 30, it should be different than at 20.
Right.
But
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
So how do we make sure that we are nurturing that relationship with self while still nurturing the relationship with our spouse, the busyness that takes place? How do we still maintain that focus and relationship with self?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One, taking time for yourself every day, whether it's meditating, just sitting with a journal, with a book, right? But taking time to be quiet, working with a coach, right? Or even a therapist, depending upon where you're at in your journey and what your needs are, because they are different. But I think it's recognizing, right? It's looking into, we are our own internal guidance system. And when we're being triggered by anyone else, we have to look at ourselves first. I don't care if it's the person at the supermarket. If you're yelling at somebody in traffic, that is not about the person that you don't know. That's about your own stuff. Your fears just came up because you thought that person was going to cut you off and you were going to die. It wasn't that he was an idiot because he didn't even see you or know that you were there, but you got scared. Owning that and then working through that, feeling the feelings. Because so what happens is if we don't feel the feeling, they just get squashed and then they come out sideways. So allowing yourself to feel that fear, I'm going to use the traffic thing because so many people can relate to that, right?
Yeah.
Like how many times do you get cut off in traffic and you're like, you're an asshole, blah, blah, blah. But really, oh my God, I'm scared. I'm scared.
Right.
I thought I was going to die. We never say that. We point the finger at the asshole.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And the same as in any that's a relationship. You were just in relationship with that person. The same is true in a couples, whether it's a man and a woman and a woman, a man and whatever it is, it's the same thing. I had one client say to me once, all right, now I have to get into a relationship so I can like test out the things I've been working on. Right? Because you're great if you're not in relationship because there's nobody to trigger you. But it's looking inside instead of pointing the finger outside.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes that's so hard.
Yeah.
Remember, when you're pointing out, there's four fingers pointing back.
Yep. That's what I always heard.
It's so much easier to see the flaws in others.
It really is. And I think, here's the thing. I just celebrated 24 years of marriage. We've been together almost 26. Relationships are fucking work.
Right. Yes. Right.
They are work.
Right.
In the 4 years that I was matchmaking and date and relationship coaching, I talked to thousands of people. And I would always ask, why did your relationship end? Most of the people were like second time around. And the smallest percentage would say infidelity, addiction. It was, we just grew apart. We had nothing in common anymore. My husband and I don't have children and we don't have pets. There is nothing in this house to distract us.
Right.
Right. We have to work on the relationship.
Right. And that's, I think that a lot of times people, especially young couples, will go into it and you have that young, fresh love.
Yep.
And they think that it's just going.
I don't even think you should be able to get married until you're in your 30s.
Absolutely.
I think that you can't drink till you're 21. You can't get married till you're 31.
Right. Right. And there's a lot of growth that takes place.
Right.
We had no business being married with a baby at 22 and 23.
Right.
We had no business. And to see our children now, to see them, I'm like, you know what? We really no business. It's a lot of growth that takes place and a lot of maturity and change. And if you are not with the right person, you will grow apart.
Oh yeah.
So it's definitely.
Well, I think too,
if you're not willing to do the work,
right?
I think too, you spend those 20s is like, I know I became a father, a husband, and an adult at the same time. You know, in those 20s is like when you're supposed to be kind of focusing on yourself.
Right.
So you have to learn how to kind of get out of yourself, so to speak, to, focus on the relationship. And when people don't do that, they hurt themselves.
Right. And it's a balancing act.
It definitely is a balancing act.
Yeah. And then you just grow apart, and then you call it quits because it just doesn't work.
Right. And we did and we read an article and did an episode about it, and it was 1,000 divorced couples were surveyed.
Yeah.
And I think it was 95% of them said that they believed that their marriage was salvageable if they had have gotten some type of intervention or help.
Yeah.
And that is astounding to me that many couples could have saved their relationship, but didn't know how or what resource or, where to turn. So
I feel like if you try to get divorced, they should make you go to therapy.
Something.
Right? Yeah.
But then again, how people are, and if you force people to do it, they may not,
true.
benefit from it.
Do this hour so I can get out of here.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I
think you both want to. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Now I asked Holly this question, and I know that typically, as far as dating, people have their list of things, their expectations. And I was curious to wonder, have you experienced men having expectations that were just so far out there?
Yeah. One of my first male clients, probably the only person that triggered me. So, so I've been with my husband for 26 years. And when I was 30, I weighed 300 pounds. So I didn't really date a lot, right? I had a few dates here and there, but there wasn't a whole lot of dating in my background. So this was even new to me, being in the dating world. But I'm all about relationships and people. So so this gentleman, when I was doing my intake with him, he kept referring to his ex-wife as his wife. So that was one flag for me. I was like, I don't really know that this guy's ready to be dating.
Really?
And he talked a lot about his ex-wife. And he really thought he was really attractive. Like, he was on a selfie and he was like, look at me, I'm attractive. And I thought, not to me. Like, he wasn't to me, but okay, whatever. And he wanted somebody really attractive. And I set him up with this woman who, by my standards, was attractive. She was intelligent. She, worked had her own business, whatever. On the night of the date, I'm on call like at the beginning of the date, not after the date. I talked to my clients the next day. Well, he was texting me and I was like, oh shit, this isn't good, right? He's like, I can't believe you set me up with this woman, blah, blah, blah. So the next day he wouldn't even return my calls. Finally, I get him on a call and he was like, he went off about this woman. He's like, her ass jiggled. And I'm thinking, now he's probably in his 40s or 50s. We're not talking 20s and 30s where you're bouncing quarters off her belly, right? Like, and it was all about her appearance. And she was an attractive woman. She was not like, there was sometimes you were like, all right, let's hope they don't have an issue with it. But she was an attractive woman. And I remember having to check myself and being like, okay, there's things I want to say to this guy, but I'm probably going to lose my job if I do. Yeah. But that was so eye-opening for me. And that was at the very beginning for me. And I had to get coached from my, mentor. And I was like, how do I handle this? And she's like, you send him out with what he wants. And I'm like, but now I don't know what I think is attractive and what this guy thinks is attractive are two very different things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So learning that, right. And knowing that men are, and I don't like saying blanket statements, but most men will not have a second date if they are not instantly attractive, like within the first few seconds. And he said, I was a nice guy. I stayed. And I thought, oh, you did. Like he was doing her a favor.
He was making it very clear why his wife was his ex-wife.
Yeah.
Right. Well, then there's that. Right. But, and he sent me a picture of his ex-wife. I didn't think she was attractive. Like, she was out in the sun way too much.
Wow.
Right? He was like, this is what I'm attracted to. And I was like, I got nothing. I don't even know what to do with this person. Right.
Wow.
But attraction is very different for different people. Right. And I see attraction like it's not about the external, because here's the thing. We are going to age. We are going to get sick. We could get in accidents. The external changes in a heartbeat. What we have on the inside, I'm not saying it doesn't change, but who you are at your core doesn't usually go away.
Yeah.
But the outside, it's going to change.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Well, that's what I would think, that when people are up in age, in that 40, 50 range, it might tend to be a little difficult because, the last time, like if someone was married for 20 years, let's say, and they got married at 20, here they are 45 trying to date again, their mindset might be a little, stuck on them at 20.
Yep.
Having that thinking, I would think that would be very difficult for someone like that, to
absolutely. And they create stories to keep themselves out of relationships. Like I had one woman, she was probably in her 60s, and I was coaching her. I wasn't her matchmaker, I was her coach. And we were talking after a date, and she said, yeah, he wore his phone on his belt buckle. I didn't really know what to do with that. I was like, okay, what?
Well, I would be out.
Right? I mean, my husband used to too. He doesn't now, but like, I was like, okay, like, right? Like, that's going to keep you, like, those are the things that you're telling yourself to keep you out of relationship. Like, so what?
Yeah.
I pick at him about his grandpa phone case.
Yeah, I got the little Velcro strap. And
I love it. So we create stories to keep ourselves out of relationship.
Yeah.
So, Francine, we want to thank you so much for joining us. And for our listeners, for anybody who is in need of a big ass up level, tell us how they can reach you, how they can find you and find out more.
Yes, they can go to my website. It's foreverchangecoaching.com. On the website, there's a pop-up that shows up that'll actually give you some prompts to find out if you're ready for that big ass up level, and some journal prompts for you as well.
Okay. And we have enjoyed our conversations with you. We have learned so much from you. And you said that you are, an energy healer, and it comes through the screen, which is amazing to me.
Yes.
So we want to thank you for that. Today, that energy boost was needed much more than you will ever know. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me.
And happy birthday early.
Yes,
thank you.
Happy birthday.
You do not look like you're turning 60.
You don't.
I appreciate that. That's what I keep telling. I don't feel like it.
You don't. You are beautiful inside and out. Like I said, that energy comes through, and I appreciate that today.
Thank you.
All right. So until next time,
we will holler at y'all. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Beyond I Do podcast.
Please make sure to like this episode and also subscribe to our podcast. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at the Beyond I Do podcast.
And until next time, we will holler at y'all.